if I were to elect you mayor of London today, or put you on the cultural, minister's front lines, what would you do? What were the three things you would do right now, to save your industry, in an intelligent way, besides just cutting the massive checks? But what would you do that you think would really be the smartest decision to make?
Okay, so I would work with industry to agree these mitigating measures that mean that even short of lifting social distancing, we can open our theatres to get a capacity of around about 70%. I think we might be nearly there with that, but anyway, that would be my first thing. Because actually, as a sector, we'd much rather be back at work than taking government money. We're, as I said earlier, the vast majority of theatres don't rely on government money normally, and we don't like having to rely on it now. We'd much rather be working. So get us back to work by agreeing these mitigating measures. Critically, one of the issues we haven't talked about yet is insurance. Now, we, along with a whole bunch of other people in the industry, are currently in dispute with our insurers about business interruption. It's not very exciting, but kind of important. And of course, perhaps understandably, the insurance industry will not insure theatre shows right now. So the other thing is, it's a big risk as a producer to put on a big show only for there to be a local lockdown or a national lockdown, which means you then have to, all the money you've invested in that show is lost. So we would like the government, and I would if I was in a position to do so, to put in place an insurance guarantee scheme. There already is one for film production. So the government has stepped in with regards to film production. So we're saying do the same for theatre production, so that theatre producers can take that risk. As Andrew Lloyd Webber said in his evidence recently to the DCMS committee, for every successful West End show, there are 10 or 20 unsuccessful ones. So producers are used to taking risks, but this is a risk too far without some kind of insurance guarantee. So those are the two things I would do immediately. The two things I would do medium term, you've only allowed me three, but I'm going to take four, is I would put in place a safe haven scheme. So this is the mothballing thing. So a way of putting those theatres into the custody of a body, maybe us or somebody else, who would look after those buildings while they're mothballed. It'd be a much more cost-effective way than trying to get individual managements to do that. And then finally, when we do come out of the other side of this, invest in those buildings in the way that I described to you earlier, because they should be part of the recovery. That big build push should also include not build more theatres, but improve the ones we've got, make them more environmentally friendly, make them more accessible, make them more inclusive, make them up to date. If you've been to a West End theatre, some of them are beautiful and have had lots of money invested in them. Some of them still need a lot of work doing on them, as do some of our theatres nationally as well. So those are the four things I would do.
Yeah, those are powerful. I was speaking to some entrepreneurs recently out in London, and I asked them what they would ask the public for. And, one of them was kind of a local coffee shop who had been in Fitzrovia and Soho for about 11 years. And he just said, when you go to buy a coffee, he said, if you could think about supporting the local businesses, not necessarily the chain stores with the venture capital finance. And I used to work in the city, so usually those guys are okay. But do you have anything you would want to ask the British public or the public in London of what they can do to help, the culture, this crucial cultural institution that, again, might not come back? I mean, there's businesses in London that have closed that will never come back, and we're going to feel that. So what would be your request for the public?
Well, I think if your theatre has managed to reopen, and some have, then go along. There are very strict regulations already in place about what we need to make theatres safe, and theatres are at least as safe as going to a bar or a restaurant. Arguably more safe, because the way that an audience behaves in a theatre is more controlled. So it's as safe as it can be to go back to the theatres that are open. So if your one is open, one near you, then I would urge you to go along. If it's not open, then I would urge you to think about buying tickets in advance, just to help them with their cash flow. Most theatres now have put in place a very generous refund scheme, in recognition of the fact that people might not want to risk buying a ticket unless they know they can get the money back should the show not go on. So buy tickets in advance for the show. We've also set up a crowdfunder called Save Our Theatre. So go onto that, you'll see loads of local theatres who are doing their own crowdfunding. So we're not fundraising for them, we're helping them with their fundraising. So if your local theatre's on there, go on there, make a donation. they're all giving prizes in exchange for donations, you know, whether it's signed programs or tickets to shows, all that kind of thing. So those are the various ways that the public, if they were minded to, could support their local theatre.